What's your greatest internet accomplishment? Ryan Reynolds liked my tweet in 2016. That or me being an approved Pornhub translator. I changed my school district's Wikipedia page. I created a section titled Notable Alumni. I was a US senator for 6 months before they caught on. I even made a campaign website as a corroborating source. My name is on Microsoft TechNet as a researcher acknowledgement because I found a pretty serious vulnerability in Skype. I joined a Minecraft server back in 2012 which had a clan system, but there was only one clan and it had about 40 people in it because every other clan was immediately squashed by them. Myself, my cousin, and one friend completely overthrew them and cemented ourselves as leaders of the server for probably the next year after that. I came back like 2 years later and people would be like, holy it, you're the Trick Daddy Red? I've heard stories about your clan. Someone threatened a school shooting on WoW forums about 12 or 13 years ago, and I saw it right when it was posted. I managed to figure out where the guy was and alerted the proper authorities. The threat had merit and the guy got busted. I got a thank you from the cops. Edit. I did have help from a local newspaper reporter in his area. Mainly help with properly notifying the right people. Edit 2. All I did was talk to the guy and tried to relate to him. He flat out told me what town he was in and I just made a few phone calls. I couldn't get any traction, so I sent a message to a local newspaper on the advice of someone else. The reporter reached out to me and then he ran with it. In terms of law enforcement, I don't know exactly what happened after that, but I had an email thanking me for the heads ups from the PD. Edit 3. Thank you everyone. I never really thought much of it at the time. I just did what all of us would do. Looking back, I think the guy who made the threat was obviously looking for attention. But I think he needed help. I don't understand psychology. Hell, I don't even understand myself. But I think he needed help and that was his way of asking. He gave me all the info I needed to do what I did. I'm no hero. Edit 4. People thank you but stop talking me up or my head will get too big and I'll float off. Edit 5. I didn't know platinum and awards worked this way. Thank you. I will award others responsibly. XOXO. NASA follows my Tumblr, which I use to post photos of dogs I meet in the streets. I'm not even from the US. dogsinthestreettumblr.com. I started a joke thread on the official forum of a video game back in 2008. It was just something whimsical and satirical that I didn't think too much about at the time. But it absolutely exploded. Not only did it get about 50 pages of responses, but once it died it would get rebumped every few months, at the end of every season of the game. I quit the game about 6 months later, but some years later I came across the link to the thread and I clicked on it. It turned out the post lived on and carried on getting bumped and generating a ton of responses all the way until the game eventually died in 2014, which you would think would be the end of it. But I found out some years later that the game ended up having a sequel, and some of the players from the original game recreated the original thread on the new game's forum and it was still generating traffic. There are probably people commenting on it who weren't even born when the thread was originally posted. Barack Obama followed me back on Twitter back in 2007-2008 when he was running for president. I don't want to brag, but around 2003 one of my comments on the adultswim.com forums was played on a bumper during programming. If I Google my name, 9 out of the first 10 results are actually about me. It helps having an unusual name though. I got 15k upvotes for saying, "What are you doing in my swamp, itch?" I had the first authenticated Twitter account in the UK. I sold a domain name for $1,500 a couple of months ago. That was pretty great. I made a bootleg comic book site back in the 90s. I used GeoCities and used each registration to host one comic book, then used another one to link them all together. I scanned all the comics from my collection. I even had an HTML template with the page numbers embedded so I would upload the same site with images. That's not the accomplishment part. I had a PHP BB forum for conversation and requests with a few thousand members. 2 members met there and got married from it. I think they lived in different countries too. That was cool. The rest was a waste of time, I guess. I posted pictures that I took in North Korea on Reddit and is still alive to tell the story. 13-16yo. Me was super popular on a site called World. I was one of the only accepted statics. I made a comment that got over 20k upvotes. Over half my current karma bank is from one comment. A guy DM'd me about an old comment I made on another account about parenting. Said he looked at it from time to time when he felt like he needed guidance as a new dad. It was the sweetest thing. One time I apparently made someone pee outside of the bowl because they were laughing at a comment. The comment was one word, and it made my day. Got a bunch of awards and words of encouragement a few months ago for an angsty dumb poem I posted. If I had to pick the one I'm proudest of, it's definitely the one on top. The second is a toss-up. I found Minecraft very early in development thanks to a browser add-on called StumbleUpon. That put a random website button on your bar. I've been playing almost since the game went public and dev stage thanks to it. I'm not sure if that qualifies as an accomplishment or not. My husband has been on Reddit for years. He finally convinced me to get it, and I bet him within the first 2 weeks I would exceed his 1200 karma. On the 13th day I made a comment that got over 27k upvotes that put me at 10k karma. He was in utter disbelief sitting beside me watching the comment grow and reach top comments haha. I got David Barton, crazy Christian nationalist that at least used to screw up Texas school books, to publish an article about how I was what was wrong with the youth in America. I went to a fundamentalist college and was a Christian at the time when everyone at my school was excited by his website. I think it was called Wallbuilders. He wrote this article insulting people who didn't think the US was founded intentionally to only ever be for Christians. I responded with a 7-page source paper on how most of us now wouldn't consider the founding fathers real Christians and that while some likely wanted a Christian nation others were vocally against it, so making the argument on intention would necessitate cherry picking who you cite. I also referenced how his extra sources he cites are dubious as he won't let anyone verify their authenticity. My core argument was just that we don't know what they overall wanted, and since they didn't explicitly make the US a theocracy, it seems weird to take 2-3 founding fathers and apply their beliefs to all of them. For this he made a post talking about how 19-year-old user Freedom was literally what's wrong with the youth in America and also was an idiot and also secular humanist scum. Aaron Carter called me abducted on Instagram and Trent Reznor blocked me. I have 2 followers and I don't even know how. I explain things at needless length on our Out of the Loop and I think I'm fairly well known for it across Reddit. Please don't let that actually be my greatest achievement. Made it onto Google Maps flexing the gun show. Establishing a creative writing group that lasted about 10 years. There are still active friendships between members, but the creative writing part has been dropped due to various factors. Thanks to PSN I knew so many new friends. I was also able to help one of his friends, who is paraplegic, to get better at Destiny 2. In November he didn't know that much about this game, and a week ago he was able to complete 2 raids, 6 players activity, with us. My worst quality video that I posted when I was a younger dumbass has almost got 1 million views. Gets the most hate too. Always been a little proud of it. Where is the guy who rickrolled Rick Astley? He needs to be here. Mike Dirnt from Green Day replied to me on Instagram multiple times. Commented on a picture of my bass guitar. He was my inspiration to pick up the bass. So I'd say that was one of my greatest accomplishments on the internet. Mike Dirnt homies. I've had a couple celebrities like my comment tweets. The biggest being Ariana Grande. I don't know why. I'm not that interesting. Probably when one of my posts reached the very top of our all. That was way back in first several months of me joining. I created the original Captain Phillips I am the captain now meme in high school 6 years ago. It got big enough to be stolen by Dory all those other damn accounts. I ended up deleting the tweet because I hated comment notifications, since it got around 20k of each interaction. That was the biggest mistake to date because now no one believes that I created it besides a few classmates I don't speak to anymore. SMH. Original caption. When you're in a group project with unreliable people. When Tap Tap Revolution came out, I, very briefly, held a world high score. Met my husband. It was actually supposed to be a fling, so it could buy my biggest internet fail too. I wrote a bullet white paper Hato back in 98 or 99, while still in high school, on how to install Linux on a particular Dell laptop. You all kids laugh, but 40 years olds know what I'm talking about. It took weeks of fiddling to get work. Some dude who worked for a small IT consulting company found it and reached out with questions. I helped him. He offered me a help desk position at his company. I quit my job at Kmart and commuted to Nick for work that summer. College time came, but I'd already established myself as the kid who can do anything IT. So they were using me on big projects like pen testing banks. They offered me $65K plus bonuses for certifications. They were a var for many vendors. I told mom and dad I wasn't going to college for music, tuba performance. I'm 38 and my badge says NASA and I have 20 PhDs under me. I'd say that stupid paper on how to install Linux on a laptop was my greatest internet accomplishment. I've made beats as a hobby for 15 years or so. A rather large producer stumbled on one of my beats and wanted to buy it from me. Apparently this happens quite a bit. So I sold him the rights to the track for what I'd consider an absurd amount of money. Like a year and a half later, my track, remade with higher quality samples, was on a rather popular rapper's album. You may have heard it. By no means a #1 hit, but it was around. Heard it bumping in PPLS cars a few times. I legally can't tell anyone what song it is. And it doesn't really matter. Point is, it took me like an hour and a half to make a track. I posted it up somewhere, then by chance this guy heard it. From there I was able to pay a full year's rent up front when I got my money. To start with. Really don't think I'll ever top that. Actually, like right when the original Xbox came out, I got this pop-up ad on a site, you won an Xbox. I was stupid and I gave them my information. I actually received an Xbox like a month later. The fact that random pop-up was legitimate and not a scam might be even more impressive than selling a track. Getting straight A's on difficult courses I would have otherwise failed if the pandemic didn't push for online education. Responding to you big purple ball, happy cake day. A couple of news outlets wrote articles about OC stuff I posted to Reddit. I paid to play a game. Not sure I'm allowed to say it. On 2 occasions. It is totally free to play, but unless you're a genius or have no job and never sleep, you pay for guns, ammo, mining tools, ships, mined implants, etc. And any loot you get is worth real money on a fixed exchange rate with the US dollar. Well, I used to invest around $100 to $200 a month. I was single at the time and lived at home. During that time I had 2 big loots, worth roughly $4K each, real money, 40K game money. I reinvested some but wanted to move out, so I sold everything bar my actual character and ended up with over $4,500 in total after conversion. A few months later and the money was in my bank and I used it as a 5% deposit on a mortgage for a flat that I now own. Fun and monies. The CEO of Gibson Guitars personally insulted me on the Gibson forum when I asked a genuine and reasonable question about their sales and supplying practices. So far having 12k subs on it. Doing well so far. I made this classic Pip-Boy mod for Fallout New Vegas and Fallout 3. It's a mod that replaces the default arm-mounted Pip-Boy with a handheld one that harkens back to the model used in Fallout 1 and 2. It turned out to be pretty popular, but frankly I was surprised that no one had made it already. At the time, there was a super futuristic PDA tablet mod, which was cool, but not lore friendly, and no classic Pip-Boy. Strange. Go to make those nude mods first too, I suppose. Being able to maintain 0 followers on Instagram. If we count online gaming, I got the world first mage solo of a Mists of Pandaria World of Warcraft raid boss. It was the Star Dragon. It was killable almost as soon as the next expansion launched, provided you took the correct equipment. The stamina buff scroll was very important. Got banned from the Yandere dev Discord in about 15 seconds. I got blocked by Donald Trump on Twitter for calling him a mad bastard. I'm a moderator of the Evil Dead Wiki, Tons of information I've added to articles over the 4 or 5 years I've been at it has started recently appearing in officially licensed merchandise, mainly the comics and prop replicas, directly copied and pasted from the site. It's been pretty surreal for me as a fan of the franchise to see how something I started doing out of boredom one summer has started having an impact on how people treat the mythology of the series. Managing to convince a Facebook mom that vaccines aren't actually a brainwashing serum. JK. This is kind of the opposite, but my friends and I used to play CS GO religiously. They thought it would be funny to constantly report me for toxicity. To this day, the only way someone can talk to me through the game is to unmute me, like the game has me automatically muted. Lol. Leaving other social media and coming to Reddit. One Grey Days followed me on Instagram for a while. It was after I posted a Linkin Park mashup in honor of Chester Bennington. He was the singer for Grey Days until they broke up in 1999. Then he went on to join Linkin Park. Him and Grey Days had been talking about reuniting shortly before his suicide in 2017. 2. Mike Shinoda of Linkin Park liked a vocal part I submitted when he asked for fans to sing on one of his songs. I cried on both of these days. I had 69,420 comment karma the other day.